Nice to see you all. I see some familiar faces and some who I don't know. So I want to kind of introduce myself really quickly. My name is Christine Bailey, as you can see up there. I have, along with my husband and kids, have been attending Foothills for about 13 years. I think 13 years, maybe a little more. I lost count. I have been married to my husband, Mark, for 29 years, working on 30. And I have 2 adult children, Katie Hale and an awesome son-in-law, Will Hale. You guys probably know them. And Michael Bailey. And I am very blessed to have them all. So I'm very thankful. And I have a bonus kid who lives with me, Sydney. So it's pretty awesome. But I'm really excited to be here because I love your age group so much. That's one of the things kind of I'll talk about a little bit later. But I really love college and career age because it is the most confusing time. You guys all know that, like, when you're a senior in high school and everybody asks you that horrifying question, what does everybody ask you when you're a senior in high school? What are your plans after you graduate, right? I actually would catch, even as much as I hated it, I would catch myself asking seniors that and go, it's okay if you don't have a plan. It's all right. You're not supposed to know what you want to do yet. But anyway, that's what I want to talk to you guys about tonight is how to figure out how to plan out your life. Should you plan out your life, right? Because there's scriptures that kind of makes it, you're not sure. So I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about my story and talk to you about what Scripture says and hopefully get rid of some of the confusion. But first, I want to find the person in the room who has the birthday closest to today. So nobody today, right? That would have been asking too much. Does anyone have it in the next, we'll say going forward, anyone in the next week? You do. Okay, come on up. I'm going to use you. Happy birthday, by the way. When is your birthday?
Next Thursday.
Oh, happy birthday. That's exciting. Okay. How many of you guys know what this is? Have any of you guys ever seen this? Right? Maybe like in your parents' car, right? But you don't have one of your own, I am sure. You do? That's pretty great. This is a AAA years ago used to give out these packs of maps because way back in the day, and I'm obviously dating myself, we didn't have GPS, okay? So we had this pack of maps to get around San Diego. And so this is like North County, and there's all different ones. But what I want to find is the one that is California. What was your name? I'm so sorry. Diana, would you open this map up for me? So this is all of California on 2 sides of a piece of paper, and you're supposed to get around California with this. Okay, imagine that, right? Okay, so we want the side that has, okay, wait, that might be perfect. No, the other side. Okay. Yes, okay. Wait, did I get it wrong? I can't even see. I'm blind. I'm so sorry. This map is so small. Okay, so this is San Diego and above. So, Diana, can you show everyone where San Diego is? Can you find it on the map? I think it's going to down that way. Okay, there's San Diego. Can you find Los Angeles on the map? Okay, and so if you wanted to get from San Diego to Los Angeles, how would you do that? Right? Right? For those of you who can't see, she looks confused because it would be difficult to figure out how to get from your house in San Diego to LA with this map, okay? Which is why some genius invented GPS. I wish I had been that person. So since that was too confusing, eventually someone created the Thomas Guide, and this right here, I can't, it's gonna be hard to see it. I'm sorry, thank you, Diana, you can sit down, thank you. This is many pages of San Diego County. And so what you would do is you would look up the street you were on, it's like an index in here, and you would look up the street, and it would tell you the map, and then on the grid, like C4, and you would find that grid, and then you would find your street, and then you would find, now you couldn't get to LA, this is just San Diego. You would find your friend's house by their street and their map, and then you would, it's the most convoluted thing in the world, but you guys, this is how we used to get around, okay? This is like, my house was on 1027, and it was G5, and I remember it, like the house I grew up in. I knew where I was, I knew where I was starting, I just never knew where I was going. So, the point of this is to explain to you guys how different it is today, right? That's number one. But also how not different it is today. Because just because you have a GPS doesn't mean you know where you're headed. You have to know where you're headed to get directions. And it doesn't matter how hard you could want it or how much you're wondering or anything else, you kind of have to have all that. Now, I want to tell you a story. I was dating a guy. I was in college. We were dating. And we had this kind of fun thing we did one day. We both had a day off of work and school. And we're talking on the phone, and we're like, what do you want to do? I don't know. Actually, it was probably more like, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, baby. What do you want to do? But you get the point, right? So we did this. We went to Disneyland. It was so much fun. Just spur of the moment, got in the car, went to Disneyland. That was back when there weren't a million people at Disneyland every single day of the year, okay? So we had so much fun. Like the next semester, we both had a day off, and we were like, what do you want to do? And he goes, being the creative person he was, said, Magic Mountain. And I said, okay, let's go. So we get in the car. We drive to Magic Mountain. I don't know how many of you guys know where Magic Mountain is. Like, it's about double the distance to Disneyland, right? We arrive at Magic Mountain. We're excited. We're so happy. We are like we're to the exit on the freeway, and there's no traffic. We're like, this is awesome. Everything's going our way. And we are on this frontage road to go into the parking lot, and there's like no line, and we're like, this is amazing. And then we get to the gate, and we realize there's no traffic, and we go, oh my gosh, it's closed. And we just drove. We are literally like the Griswolds in Vacation. We have driven all the way to Magic Mountain, and there's nobody there. It's closed. So not to be deterred, and because this is not many years into marriage, we're not irritated with each other. It's still very romantic. And so we decide, well, what else can we do? We're like so far away from home. Like, we don't want to just drive home, right? Like, where do we want to go? And one of the things we had like always kind of wanted to do was see Rodeo Drive. Who knows what Rodeo Drive is? Yeah, not very many people. Has anyone seen Pretty Woman, the movie Pretty Woman? A fantastic story of redemption. No one wants to admit they saw it. I saw it. Anyway, where Julia Roberts' character where she gets kicked out of the store, that's Rodeo Drive. And so at that time, Rodeo Drive was this awesome street. It kind of still is, I think. I don't know. I haven't really been there. You've been there? Is it? Okay. So all the designer stores are there, and you can only go in by appointment, and it's pretty amazing. But at that time, my boyfriend and I were like, we want to go just kind of see what it's about, right? We just want to walk on Rodeo Drive and like window shop and pretend we belong there. And so we are excited. We're like, okay, we have a new plan. We're excited. We're going to go to Rodeo Drive. So I open up my map, and actually, no. Oh, no. I'm forgetting. I don't know. We had either this map or that map. We had a map that made no sense. And so I'm navigating, he's driving. We are driving a really long time, and we thought we weren't that far from Beverly Hills, but we must have been further than we thought. And so we're driving, and we're driving, and we're driving, and he's like, sweetie, do you think this is the right way? And I'm, he's being sensitive, and I'm like, yes, it's the right way. Are you telling me I don't know how to read a map? And so we go a little further, and he's like, are you sure? And yeah. And like, see, right up there, it's Rodeo Road, not Rodeo Drive. Rodeo and rodeo are spelled the same way, if you're wondering. So we ended up in the ghetto of LA, very far away from Beverly Hills. And so we ended up getting married because it made the most sense, right? So I don't know why he wanted to marry me after that, but he did eventually. I guess I got him back. So anyway, that's just a little map story. It has nothing to do with the point. I'm just giving you a little fun map story for you. Little bonus there. So let's get to the point. Sir Winston Churchill famously said that he who fails to plan is planning to fail. Have you guys all heard that? That's a pretty common quote. But also, Proverbs 16:9 says that the mind of the person plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. So which one is right? The truth is they both are. They both are right. They're both true. What I think Christians mess up sometimes, we mix up, when we read Proverbs 16:9, we assume that what it's telling us is don't bother making a plan because the Lord will direct your steps. What I think it's saying is your mind is made to make a plan, but understand that I'll direct your steps. I'll get you there. I may change it. I may give you a detour. I might take you to Rodeo Road. It could happen, okay? And what I think we need to understand is that building a life is a lot like building a building, okay? I don't know if many of you know much about construction. I was raised in it. My father was a contractor, a builder, and then I ended up becoming a part owner in his company down the road and spent my whole career in construction. I know I look like a construction worker, don't I? And what is funny about construction, any building you build, is that it takes forever to build the foundation. It takes forever to see any progress. And if you're watching something like, say, across the street, or you're trying to build your own home, it might seem like forever until that foundation is built. And then as soon as they start putting up walls, it goes so fast. It seems like it happened overnight. I believe that the Christian walk is sort of similar to that. There's a lot of foundation building. I know that's been true in my life. In Job, and I think most of you probably have heard the story of Job, and he lived a reality most of us probably don't want, if we're honest. But at a certain point in Job, God has been allowing these things to happen to Job, and at a certain point, he's trying to take it on the chin. He's trying to be a good sport about it. He's trying to be a godly man, and he is a godly man, but eventually he just kind of lets at it with God. You know, what are you doing? I served you. I was doing everything you told me to do. And God comes back with this awesome series of verses where he says, who are you? And who are you to question me and what I do and what I say? And so in Job 38, verse 4, he says, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you know so much. Who determined its dimensions and stretched out the surveying line? What supports its foundations? And who laid its cornerstone? Now, I don't really think, I could be wrong, I don't really think God was being literal. I'm not sure that he determined dimensions, made a surveying line, put a cornerstone in for the world. I think what he's doing is talking to Job in a way that he understands it. And what that implies to me is that God made our minds to plan, to think that way, okay? Because that's what's happened through all of history, is we have planned, we have built buildings, we have gotten married, we have just made all kinds of plans. We've created nations. That's the way we're made. That's the way our minds are made. And we are made to make a plan. So I want to talk a little bit about how we approach planning. I think there's 3 ways that humans approach planning. The first way is power mode. And you guys all know the person who is power mode. They take charge of their life as if human determination were more important than a sovereign God. They plan, they overplan, they overthink. They often live in anxiety and perfectionism and anger because it's all up to them. They have to figure it all out. They need to get it all right. I don't know if any of you relate to that. That was me. And that was also my husband. The second mode is YOLO mode, okay? Letting go of their life as if God's sovereignty was the only part of the equation. You guys all know YOLO dude, right? That person doesn't even know if they're getting up to go to work tomorrow morning. They have no idea they're not planning anything, okay? And what that often leads to is laziness, passivity, and even indecision, because if you really don't know why, or you don't know what, or you don't know where, you can't really make a decision, can you? So in that situation, it's all up to God. And the reality of planning is that it's kind of a little of both. God is responsible, and I'm responsible. And you don't have to look that far in Scripture to know this. In the Old Testament, in Genesis 2, Eden was given to Adam, but he had to work to keep it. And in Proverbs 6, we're told to consider the ant and how hard he works and how he just knows innately what to do. And work is part of his MO. I don't know, are there male and female? Yeah, there's male and female ants, right? I don't know. That's not my not my wheelhouse. So 1 Thessalonians 4, in the New Testament, Paul instructs the Thessalonians to aspire to work with your hands as we instructed you, so that you may walk properly before outsiders and be dependent on no one, even your parents. I also, in 1 Timothy 5, if you don't provide for your family, you're worse than an unbeliever. So clearly, we are supposed to have a plan. We are supposed to work, and we're supposed to have a plan. But on the other hand, in Deuteronomy 8, God warns not to say in your heart, my power and my might and the might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth. And in Psalm 127, we're warned that unless the Lord builds a house, those who build it labor in vain. So we know we're supposed to work. We know we're supposed to plan. But how do we know what to plan? And that's the gist of really what we want to talk about tonight. That's really what you're wondering, right? How do we know what to plan? How do I even know I want to go to LA? Maybe I want to go to Mexico. Maybe I want to go to Phoenix. I don't know where I want to go. So the answer to the question is so simple that I almost feel bad charging you for it. So I won't. It's a free one. Ask God what he wants for your future. You guys all know that, right? But there's an and. And ask him what you should do now to make that happen. I'll say that again. Ask God what he wants for your future and what you should do now to make that happen. Now, God's going to use a lot of things to teach you and talk to you about the future and what he has for you. He can speak directly into your brain. That, I don't know if anyone's ever had that happen before. I've only had it happen once. But he can do that. He can speak directly to you, and you can hear words. But more likely than not, he's going to do it in a different way. He may use dreams. He may use visions. You guys know what the difference is between dreams and visions? Anyone know? Dreams are something that comes when you're sleeping, and visions are something that generally you're awake. But God can show you things in your future in dreams and visions. I actually have a sister who we were talking about this the other day, and she goes, oh, remember that dream I had? When she was in college, she dreamed. Well, she had a boyfriend in high school. They were madly in love. They broke up. He was, a football player. She was a cheerleader. It was very romantic and perfect. And they broke up, and he went off to BYU for college. And she had this dream that, and she always had a fantasy. Her dream job would be working for United Way. And in this time, she literally was sleeping, had a dream that she got a job at United Way, that she married her ex-boyfriend, and he became a professional football player. And it happened, all of it. So you never know what could happen, right? So God can speak to you in dreams. He can speak to you in visions. He can speak to you in prophecy. Sometimes he even speaks to you in silence, which sounds crazy, but sometimes he just wants you to sit back and wait because he has not unfolded that part yet. So not talking about dreams and visions biblically, but just theoretically, what is the difference between a dream and a vision? Okay? A dream is a nice drift of imagination. It's a wish, but it has no inherent substance, and it usually seems pretty unattainable, right? A vision, on the other hand, involves a scripted effort to effect change, and it has legs to it. There's a phrase. It has legs to it. It has something that you can do, a way you can move toward it, that you can see even from where you are right now. Now, every vision begins with a dream. Every vision begins with a dream. But it's almost never a compliment to be called a dreamer. A visionary, on the other hand, is something we would all love to be called. So, a visionary develops habits that lead to success in reaching goals. Habits like understanding the value of delayed gratification, maybe pursuing an education, not necessarily traditional, maybe not college, but maybe some type of trade school or other training, maybe an apprenticeship. Also, another habit of visionaries and successful people is making connections and networking, just meeting people. When my husband and I were first married and he was starting his career, I can't tell you how many people he talked to. I mean, anyone he could talk to in the real estate or finance world, he talked to. If he could buy them a coffee, he did. And that was before there was Starbucks, so it was a little more challenging. So this guy would just sit and talk to anyone who was successful in business or anyone that had anything to do with real estate or finance, because he knew that's what he wanted to do, but he knew nothing about how to get there. So understanding that those are things that may be something you could do right now. Now, maybe it's completely different for you. I don't know. Again, asking the Lord to reveal to you, what is it I could be doing right now to be moving toward what I ultimately want or dream of? Now, I understand that some of you are thinking, yeah, but I don't really have a dream yet. Okay, ask the Lord for that too. Sometimes what's there has been hidden because either people have told you need to be practical and what you're dreaming of or what you want to do isn't practical. Sometimes it's hidden because you just have forgotten it. It's something you loved to do as a kid that you've kind of forgotten or stepped away from. There's a lot of different ways God can show you, but if you ask him to reveal it to you, he will. I promise you, he will. He says that when we want wisdom and we ask for wisdom, he promises to give it. This is no different. Wanting wisdom about your life is no different. Did you know, I mentioned delayed gratification a couple minutes ago. Did you know that delayed gratification is more important than IQ in determining your success? It's more important than being smart, and it's more important than being clever. Being willing to delay gratification, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple minutes, is more important in determining your success. And did you know that those who imagine themselves 5 to 10 years out make better decisions in the present? If you want to avoid making bad decisions, have a vision of where you want to be 5 to 10 years from now. It will help you make better decisions. Again, I'll talk about that in a second. So I guess what I'm asking you to do, first step, is to decide what your non-negotiables are. What are your non-negotiables in your life? What are the things you really, really want? Maybe you want to be a stay-at-home mom. And you know that that's what you want to do. You want to raise your kids. Maybe you want to homeschool your kids, okay? You don't have to be married yet to know that. You just know that that's a goal, that's something on your heart, that's something you really want. that would mean that you would really make sure that whoever you marry, whoever you date, whatever you decide, that person has the same value and the same goal. Don't try to make someone into that person, but understand that if that's important to you, if that's something the Lord has put on your heart, you probably shouldn't date someone who doesn't agree with that. You probably definitely shouldn't marry someone who doesn't agree with that, unless you really know that the Lord has changed that for you, okay? And that's a complicated thing. We can talk about it. I'll say that when I started college, I was super driven. I was the power mode person. I was most likely to succeed. I was the most anxiety-ridden, stressed-out person you ever met, and I went to college, and I was determined. I knew what degree I wanted. I went through in 4 years and double-minored, and I had a plan, and I was going to go work in a hotel because in the 80s there was a TV show called Hotel, and there was a really glamorous woman who was a hotel administrator named Christine. So clearly it was meant to be, right? It was a sign from God. Well, I got about a year from graduating from college and realized that if I was going to do that I would probably have to work 60 to 80 hours a week. I would probably have to move all over the country, if not the world. And I would probably have to do that for 15 to 20 years before I ever could be an administrator. And I realized pretty quickly that that didn't work with my vision of raising my own kids and being with my family and having a family. It didn't work. And so I had to realize that the Lord was kind of showing me something. So that can happen. But what I'm saying is, maybe a better example is, if you are dreaming of being a missionary in Africa, don't date someone who wants to stay in San Diego. Not a wise decision. Okay? It's important to understand what your non-negotiables are. Now, some of them are as simple as, I want to own a house. Someday, I want to own a house. That's a goal I have. Or I want to own a really, really, really big house, a really great house. I want the biggest house in San Diego, and I want it on the water. Okay? I'm not telling you that's my goal. I'm saying maybe that's yours. I don't know. I don't know if that's God-given or not, but I'm saying that if that's what you see for yourself, understand that that's what you see for yourself. Maybe you want to own a business. Maybe you want to be a hairstylist. Maybe you want to actually own the salon. I don't know. Maybe you want to invent something because you've always kind of been that kind of person that has a mind that works that way, and you think, I'd be a really good inventor. Maybe you want to go into ministry. Understand what your non-negotiables are and understand what your dreams are, okay? What are the things that in the back of your mind always seems like, that would be awesome if I could do that. That would be amazing if I could live like that. Now, I'm not talking about Kim and Kanye, although I know that's imploding. I'm not that far out of it. But I'm talking about just things that you see and have always seen for yourself, or maybe are just starting to see for yourself as things you really want and that are important to you. Now, it's important to understand that we have to always remember that we have to work hard for everything. We have to assume we're going to work hard. The fact that God gives you a vision does not mean it's going to come easy. In fact, I can pretty much tell you after all of my 53 years that almost nothing comes easy, okay? Every once in a while it does, but rarely. So, and it's biblical. Proverbs 21:5 says, good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. Proverbs 31:16, this one's for the ladies. You know that famous Proverbs 31 chapter that makes us feel like a loser every time we read it, right? I still feel like a loser, and I've lived most of my life trying to be her. But Proverbs 31:16 says, she goes to inspect a field and buys it. With her earnings, she plants a vineyard. So he expects us to work. So now we've talked about how do I know what plans to make? How do you start figuring that out for yourself? And I've given you all these ideas, and I've said make plans, but now I'm going to tell you something else. I'm going to tell you leave space for God to change your plans. Because we get a plan in our life, we get an idea, my husband, who told me that I could use any part of his story when I was talking about him, but I had to say my sexy husband every time I mentioned his name. So we're not going to mention him by name, okay? Just for Michael's sake, we're not going to mention him by name. Poor guy. So but his story is that he grew up in a family of people who were very much white collar and blue collar workers, which is great. They worked for the same companies their whole careers. They literally retired from the company they started with. They were working, for 35 years. They got their gold watch. They said goodbye and they retired. And he always knew that he was going to be self-employed. And he had no idea how to do that. He had no experience with that. He had no plan for that. His parents divorced, so he didn't even have a dad to talk to about it. And if he had, his father wouldn't have known either. And so for him, he had this plan and these dreams. And as he got further into it and started going to college and started figuring out, okay, I want to do real estate and finance, it became, I don't know if talisman is the right word, but it became such an important thing to him to be successful in that career, in a career of real estate, that he held tightly to that. And he started making plans, and he was determined to make it, no matter what. He was going to make it. And what happened was the first 8 years, so he finished school just after we got married, and the first 8 years, we fought and fought, not personally between us, we fought together to build this life that we envisioned and we thought we had a plan for. And I mean, nothing worked. Nothing worked. We tried so hard. He went to work, got this amazing job as a commercial broker. He shouldn't have gotten it. He was too young. He beat out all the other applicants. It seemed like such an answer from the Lord. He worked for 2 years, about 80 hours a week. He would get up at 4 in the morning and come home at 8 o'clock at night. So I don't know, do the math. Maybe it was more than 80 hours a week. And he won every award. Every time they had a competition in his office, and these are people who've been doing it for 30 years, he would win every time. He'd make the most cold calls. He'd get the most appointments. He would do everything right. And after 2 years, he had made, are you ready for this? $1,100. $1,100 after all of that. And it was devastating. He was devastated. He thought, what am I doing? I thought the Lord showed me what to do. I thought he told me to do this. I thought he gave me this opportunity, and I'm failing. So because he felt like he was failing and he felt like it was time to leave, he ended up getting a job through a friend, still self-employed, but working for a commercial. So a broker, I don't know if you guys know, I should have explained this, is someone who sells commercial real estate, commercial properties. And then he got a job doing oh my gosh, Michael, appraisals. Yeah, doing appraisals for commercial property. And he did that for 5 years. He worked as an independent contractor for this company and basically valued commercial properties for banks and people buying or selling. And that's what he did. And we made a decent living. I had a good job, so luckily we were good with that. Then he got the opportunity to go back into brokerage, which is what he thought he wanted to do, and went in with a partner from his old firm. They basically put everything they had on the line, and they worked for a year and a half, and abject failure. They could not sell a thing. They could not do it. So now we're 8 years in, and he has not been able to make anything happen. And he has been working like a dog. And I'm telling you guys, no one worked harder than Mark did. I said it, I'm sorry. No one worked harder than he did. It was devastating to do for him. It was devastating for me to watch. It was not what we had planned. We were going to be successful. We were going to do it right. Now, what I will tell you is that, number one, the Lord was so good to us because had we done it, made it, in that first couple years, we would not be who we are today. He humbled us. He humbled us. Like that verse that I read to you guys in Deuteronomy, we would have thought we did it ourselves. We would have thought that we did it on our own power, on our own steam, and in our own time, and we would be very different people than we are today. We can guarantee you that. I can't use the word I would use to describe who we would be today because this is being recorded. So, it was devastating. What's amazing is that the next step was him going to a man who they were renting space from for this last venture that failed, and asking him, is there anything I can do for you guys? Is there any way I can work for you? Because I've got to make a living, because we had a 2-month-old baby girl. And he was like, I can't keep going like this. I've got to make a living. And these people took a chance on him, ended up bringing him in to work for them. And ultimately, everything he did for this family, he's spent the last 24 years working with this family, and everything he's done for them has used that 8 years of experience, and he has expertise and knowledge that nobody has. Literally, every time he works with someone new, they are blown away by the overall understanding he has of commercial real estate, which never would have happened without that 8 years. But it was devastating. So I say all of that to say, leave space for God to change your plans. When you're going from San Diego to LA, you might hit traffic. There might be a detour. You might want to make a stop along the way. You might get lost. There's 1,000 ways. You can see on this map, there's 1,000 ways to LA from here, okay? And I promise you, God's probably not going to take you the short, easy route. And the reason is because there is so much for us to learn along the way. Proverbs 16:1 it's not the same one I read before. It's funny. They're two different ones. We can make our own plans, but the Lord gives the right answer. And then in James 4, James says, look here, you who say today or tomorrow we're going to a certain town and we'll stay there a year and we will do business there and make a profit. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like a morning fog. It's here a little while and then it's gone. What you ought to say is, if the Lord wants us to, we will live and do this or that. Otherwise, you are boasting about your own pretentious plans, and all such boasting is evil. Remember, it is a sin to know what you ought to do and then not do it. I add that little note because I had that little verse at the end, because in that 8 years and all of that struggle, there were a couple of times where Mark was either offered a job or given the opportunity to interview for a regular desk job, and he did get offered a couple. And it was clear to us that that was not what the Lord had for him. He wanted to do the responsible thing, but we knew it would be the death of a dream. And it was a dream that we both believed was God-given. And so he did not take jobs when he probably, worldly wisdom, should have. Okay? We moved forward, and the Lord blessed us. So the problem isn't planning. Okay, what I want you to understand here is the problem isn't planning. It's planning as if it were only in your hands. Make a plan, but be ready for God to change the plan. And can I add, don't sacrifice your goals, your long-term goals for the short term. That is not the same as a change of vision. Sometimes we just sacrifice things. We're on our way to LA and we're like, there's so many places to see. There's so many ways to get distracted. Stay focused. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom and you guys want to start a family in a couple years, but you need a new car and you're like, wow, it'd be really cool to buy this car because we could like make payments. We could get $100 payments for like 842 months and it would be awesome, except it will derail your plan. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, you're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to plan on for the long term. You're going to have delayed gratification. Those are things that are going to happen. So now we've talked about how we know what to plan. We've talked about leaving room for God to change your plans. And then the last thing I want to tell you is I want you to plan for the future, but I want you to live for today. Paul, in his letters to the Corinthians, gives us a great example of this. He makes tentative plans and says, if the Lord permits, he'll return to visit them at some point in the future. But goes on to say in the very next verse, 1 Corinthians 16:8, that he will stay in Ephesus for the immediate future because a great work has opened up for him. So he wasn't planning on that, but that's what happened. And he knows how to recognize it. As believers, listen to me, guys. As believers, it is important to remember that every stage of our lives is meant to be meaningful. Don't get caught up in the cycle of waiting for the next thing to make you happy. There are lessons to be learned and muscles to be developed for what lies ahead. Your ability to enjoy success is greatly diminished or improved in proportion to the way you approached the journey. I'm going to say it again. Your ability to enjoy success is greatly diminished or improved in proportion to the way you approached the journey. There are many who battle their way through life who find that success is a great disappointment. And if your happiness depends on the exact fulfillment of your goals, you will very likely find heartbreak. Ecclesiastes 9 says, one who succeeds at work may be no more deserving than one who fails. Listen, there's a lot of people out there who work hard all their lives and don't get ahead. It's not pleasant to talk about, but the reality is we could do all the right things and the Lord might say, no, this is not good for you. Or it's not good for your family. Or it's just not good for my kingdom. So we can't be dependent on the fulfillment of our goal. We have to be dependent on what the Lord has for us. And that's a distinction. But planning consciously for the future is one of the best tools to stay grounded in the present. So I want to just kind of add a little bit more about Mark and I. Sorry. I keep doing that. We had a lot of dreams. Some of them turned into visions. Most of them eventually happened, but nothing like we planned. We planned to be successful right out of the gate, and we weren't. We planned to have a lot of kids, and we couldn't. We had multiple miscarriages, and we were thrilled to be able to have 2. The Lord blessed us by showing us what to hope for. He blessed us by not allowing us to have our hopes met in the way we expected. And he blessed us by not turning all of our dreams into visions. He knew what was best for us. He had a plan for our lives. Ultimately, Mark did find success in real estate. We live a very good life right now. But I'm telling you guys, what the Lord had planned, even though we envisioned the life we have now, what he wanted, we thought it would mean something different to us. And what he wanted was for us to understand that not a dime that we have is through our own wisdom, our own hard work, our own motivations, but it's he who gives. The Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. He also wanted us to have a passion for youth. And I'll tell you that going through miscarriages and not being able to have children and wondering if we'd ever have children gave us a passion for youth. It's the reason we both worked in youth ministry and high school ministry for 8 years. Now, we live the life we always envisioned, but we are marked with generosity and a passion for youth, and that is everything our ministry is. All of our ministry we've ever done and everything we do now and everything we will ever do is marked by those 2 things. God gave us a vision, but we didn't have a clear idea of what it would really mean for his kingdom. I want you guys to understand that the dreams that he gives you, that he wants to turn into visions, and the way he wants to bring those about in your life will mean so much to you, so much more than they even do now. Don't give up on them. Don't give up on him. Don't sacrifice the long term for the short term. He wants to bless you. He wants to give you more than you could ever imagine. I promise you that. He is faithful, and he is good, and he is kind. One more thing really quick. The family that Mark went to work for, it was two brothers. They were older at the time, in their 70s, and the one brother passed away within a few years of Mark. Well, a few years of Mark working there. But the other brother became a mentor to Mark, a very godly man, very godly man, who became his mentor and actually even more of a father to him. He guided Mark through his career the last 24 years. And he's someone who would never have had his name on a building, but you guys have been impacted many times over, I'm sure, by some of the things that he did. If you guys have ever heard of Young Life, the reason Young Life is even in San Diego County is because of him. He brought it to San Diego County because he saw that there wasn't much for youth in our schools. If you guys ever, you're very young to think of this, but there was a Billy Graham crusade when Billy Graham was alive. The reason Billy Graham came to San Diego was because of this man. He brought him here. There are many other things that you guys touch on a daily basis, I'm sure, in ministry-minded in San Diego County that are because of him, and he would never have his name on it. He was a planner. He was a man who said at a certain point in his life, I don't know how to do much. I'm not a pastor, but I know how to make money, and I'll do it for the kingdom for as long as I can. And he died this past Monday at the age of 97. A godly man who knew how to plan, who knew that he offered everything he had to the Lord, and every dime he made went back to him. He never held on to a single penny. If you met him, you would think he was a retired school teacher. He never dressed nice. He never lived in a huge house. He just served the Lord. I hope I can be like that. I hope you guys can be like that someday. So, to finish, I have this book here. I pray through this book for my kids. It's called The Power of Praying for Your Adult Children. But there's a prayer here that I want to pray over all of you tonight. So if you could stand, I want to pray for you. Lord, when these young men and women do have a sense of purpose, I pray that they will not lose it. Give them wisdom and the motivation to take the right steps every day. Enable them to understand what is most important in life so they can make decisions and choices early. I pray that they will never fail to consider their destiny in every choice they make and in everything they do. Help them to not have their minds made up without consulting you. Keep them from insisting on what they want instead of wanting what you want. Instill in these young men and women a desire to always be in the center of your will. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.